Hello dear friends, in this lesson we will continue working on the filter. We will send a request via Ajax every time the filter changes or when the Load More button is pressed. So let's move on to our code. By the way, this field here should be hidden. There seems to be a mistake somewhere. Let's find this field. Yes, here it is. Type hidden, so the input should not be visible. Let's recall, we created the gamesbox block and for it, Vue.js. In this file, we will now write custom JavaScript code. So, for the objects, we will have filter form and we will take it by the selector. So let's use this selector. So the class, and inside the tag form, we will also need a button, one, more. We will select it like this. I will assign a separate selector to it. I don't want to use this kind of selector at all. I inserted this class, but the styles didn't load for it. Apparently because we set them on the link. Therefore, I am removing the class that I assigned in the previous lesson and adding the button selector here. Wonderful. Next, what else will we need? Handlers. For example, when the form changes and when the form is reset. Let's address it upon change. Event listener on change. We will perform the following action in order to successfully and efficiently achieve our goal. And for the actions, we will have a separate function that will send this request. Let's call it submit form for now. For now, I'm just calling this function, well, let's create it. Below here, function submit form. It will take a parameter append, which will default to false. Here, when I call it, I set false. We will have the same handler, both on change and when clicking on the form. That is, we see that when we change something, a request should be sent, and this body changes. If we click the button, a request is also sent, and the body with the games changes. If I press reset the filter, a request is also sent and the body should change as well. That is, right now, when I press reset, it essentially just resets but does not send a request. I need to send a request on reset as well, so this way we will do it on reset and also add an add event listener to what more, button click, and do the same thing by calling this function. The request is necessary to ensure that the system is properly reset and ready for new inputs. Then here, when we reset, we need to set a small timer for 100 milliseconds. This timer is crucial because it allows the system to stabilize before executing the next set of instructions. The add event listener is used to efficiently manage events and ensure that the function is executed at the right time. The function being called is designed to handle specific tasks that are essential for the operation. After the timer completes, the system will proceed with the next steps, ensuring a smooth transition and operation. And we will move this into the timer to ensure that all processes are synchronized and executed in the correct order. Next, every time, that is, when I click load more, I will move to the next page. That means my current page will change. But when I reset the filter, I need to set this current page to 1. So here, in general, I will probably have a variable called current page. The default is typically 1 and by default upon reset. I will keep returning to setting its value to 1 repeatedly, consistently, and reliably without fail. And in change, also 1. But when clicking on Loo from more, I will add additional line breaks so they don't overlap. And here, this current page should increase upon clicking, so I use increment and increase it. in principle everything, except that here I need true, because this attribute will be responsible for when I click load more, I keep everything I have here, just add to it, meaning I use append, whereas, for example, reset, I should clear it, or when I select some search, I should also clear it. For this reason, I create a separate key for myself called append. And in the case when I click load more, I use the value true. And then I will be able to use this key. So now let's go over our function with form data, what we will have here. We need data from the form. So we will have form data, and we will take form data from filter form. That is, in this object, our form is stored, so we take all the data that is there. Then this data, to them, I will add this variable with page to know which page I am on. Therefore, by the key page, I will pass the current page. This is the value that I have here. I need to put all my data into a variable and convert them. Therefore, I will name this variable query string, and using param, I form that into such a format. Now I can pass this format through, fetch to my PHP handler, and let's try. Now, using fetch to pass, so we need an Ajax URL. We created this Ajax URL in one of the lessons. Let's see on which object. So here we have, but these are not ours. Here we have, it's all in commas, and there's no problem attaching to it in principle, but we will attach to ours, which we created, and from Game Store, this is ours. And I am all fish, so we refer to key, no, and cook. And the second parameter is lunch. By the way, I have said many times that we need to check our plugins. If in commas it doesn't load, then we shouldn't show the plugins either. We have functions in 2S for cameras, and they cause errors. In principle, just in commas paran, if we had the option, definitely load our guy. Only if in the cameras we could safely use this, the same thing. But let's make this option, meaning I am in our plugin with blocks in this field. So, starting from the version, I believe, there is a special meta called river with plugin. So, I am writing it incorrectly. Advertising, and this is how it's written in English, and this is your press. Yes, this is how we set the slugs. 2 cameras, that is. So here we mean, yes, like this, 2 cameras of that plugin which is necessary. And this option works starting from a version, I don't remember exactly, but it's already an old version. It's been working for about a year. And the same thing we will now do for Game Store. We'll write it down. For our plugin, just in case, let's update it. Let's see if anything is not working properly. So far, everything is working fine. Let's edit the admin panel. And in the admin panel, everything loads as well. Just in case, I'll also go into the plugins. Everything is great. The plugin didn't fail, but look, what appeared is that this plugin specifically requires WooCommerce. Make sure to write such checks. So let's return to our request. Yes. and specify the method. In our case, it's post. Next, we'll specify the body. And for the body, I prepared it in a string format. But the problem is that we won't see now what parameters we are passing, only by the ID of the link. I probably rushed. I'll remove this and we'll probably do it differently. Let's remove this string. And here I'll just create this. The object itself. Once again, manually separately. Each field separately. So the action we have is the action on the server that we will call, which we will build. I'll call it filter games. Next, the parameter page. I'll pass this quarantine, what I added here, but the logic from this is probably not needed either, so I'll remove it. Next, post page. So post page is like this. Here are our blocks. These are our parameters, you see. So I created a hidden field post page with the name post page, so I can get its value here by referring to the form data using the get method and by the key post per page. The next parameter I need, let's see what's here. Is this platform? Yes. By the key platforms. Form data. Let platforms. Next, for metadata, not addressing it right now. It doesn't matter what kind of data it is, whether it's metadata or not. The main thing for me now is to package and transmit it. Rather, I will just carefully check the keys. Therefore, I will pass publisher. Next is single player. Here above we try. Next, with the date, we have a release field here. Then, and these, so here we also have an interesting structure. It seems to me they are digging for us, generating IDs. He inserted and the name to the parameter of this kind, that is when we have a select, there we have on and we get a single assignment, but here essentially we have to pass the selected ones to Ajax. For example, I selected 3, I need to set these 3 IDs and pass them to the batch, PI. Let's try, so let's have languages. We will have a transfer here, but we need to form it and try this. Here to form this object in selected languages. By default, it will be an empty array. And we will be making a selection. Let's go through the fields and those that are checked among them. We will extract this ID and insert it as an option. Let's do it this way. We take all. So we refer to the input by selector, but with a name that contains language. Yes, we have that. I'll do it just in case. Simply copy paste this one. and it should be selected as checked. For each one, I will populate this variable with the selected language, like push. I take its name parameter, remove language from this parameter, and only the ID will remain. This way. I'll also make these parameters for the copy pastes. We have both the ID and the same structure in it. And I replace this with emptiness, and I will get in selected language an array of selected IDs. And essentially I can pass here selected languages, but I'll separate them with a comma. That is, convert them into a string and separate them with a comma. Next, in PHP, I'll figure out what to do with them. Essentially, we need the same structure for genres. So copy-paste for genres. We have the key generous here, or maybe Henry. Let's check and also do a copy-paste like this. Copy. Otherwise we'll be searching for a long time later. And cut this out here. And pass the genre. Like this, good. So, as we have composed this body, now we will also check if it is formed and reaches where we need it. Well, let's finish. After we have sent it, we will receive response. And our data need to be placed in a container. We did not create for the container. We will now create an object. Camel container. We access through query selector and container. Our next is this game list. This is our container. Now we check this key append. To know where this function is called from, we need to add or replace. If append is 2, then we should add. Here we use camel with a lowercase letter starting, and to this container. And on HTML, we add the data that I will return. Otherwise, on the camel list container, I simply replace and insert there again the data that I return. And we can also display errors. So, we lost the point here. So, there's a typo here. Languages. They seem like simple words, but I can't hit the letters. At first glance, everything looks complete and logical. Now we need to create this filter games and get this data there. Let's take care of this. We have a separate plugin for such purposes, this core game store. In the include folder, let's create a separate file and name it games filter. PHP. Open the oven and create a function. TimeKSGen. So I use a key and also add to it Ajax handler. This will be my function in which I will form next. I use POC to hook it to the YAGS action VP Ajax underscore, and this action is used, and as a callback parameter we pass our function. But you know, in WordPress there are two hooks for Ajax. So I copy this for authorized and unauthorized users. Therefore, Ajax. Here, no prips also added. Filter mover. Everything else remains exactly the same. Next, let's form the data that comes to me. They come to us through the global post variable. So, for example, post. You. But in general, the variable sounds like post in plural. But I think I said it in singular. Here, at least until now, I'll leave it as is. I won't edit it. But here I do it correctly, as needed. And we perform a check and highlight if the global variable post with a key. But these keys are needed. Yes, here, I have it set in singular. If I have something there, this post port page, then I will return it. But the only thing, I convert it to integer. Since I will use this value in the request. Using it from the global post variable. Otherwise, do we have 8 or 16? How many did we set? Well, I think by design it should be 16. But we convinced ourselves that in the project here we will use 8. Therefore, otherwise, the 8 with smoke here. Now, all other parameters too. That's how it needs to be built. We have for the pager, up parameter, using copy paste, already by the page key. Page. And if it is not set, then it means I am on the first page. 1. Further platform. For such fields that return a single value. Select, this is a single value meta box. We also have a single value. We can conduct additional sanitization for them, therefore sanitize text file. And we pass this value. Otherwise it's just empty if it's empty. We will not add this data to the request. After the platform, we have it closer. Next, we have single player. Then release. And then languages. We have a string. It's important to understand separated by commas. So for now, we can extract it the same way. But when we form the loop, we'll adjust something there. And generate the same thing. All right, and the next one, we are forming a loop. Let's think we are in the block. We form the loop using the in-camera functions. Since we just displayed 8 products, but now we have a very complex one, and it's unlikely that the in-camera function will help us and apply meta in this request. So we won't use it here. We will use WordPress of ski and functions, but then convert it into a product object. So we will proceed as follows. We will set this array with settings for ourselves. Argus, and in it, post type will be product. Next, post per page. We have it safely stored in this variable. Next, we take only published posts. So we write post status, publish, and we will also have pagination on click. So the parameter page must also be passed. We have this variable page, the current page. We will perform checks for each type. If it exists, we will make an insertion, but we will do this a little later. Let's lay out the post. So we will have filtered games, a certain variable that already uses this query that we pass. And how will it work? If we have something set in the form, we will have these variables enter into our array here. If not, then by default, it will simply load the next ones. It will be based only on this pager. Here we can use the getPost function. It will return the post, and we pass this parameter. I'll leave more space here since we will describe the logic later. If we have some results, then we will open a loop. And here we need to place the body. Our body uses the product object. So let's take this input, return here, and add it. That is our layout. Next, we should have this variable inserted. And we could display it later on the screen. After displaying it, we will terminate the function here. So now we need the game object so it can apply methods that are not WordPress. We will create it now. The game variable passing the ID. The only thing I don't remember is whether we can use the post object here or if we need to pass the ID, specifically just in case. Passing with the ID and leaving it as is. We have a basic loop. Here it is. The request here is the loop itself, in the variable. We put everything into this variable and output it. Let's load this file. So we go here. And Inglewood Games. Filter. Next, we go to the site. Refresh the page. Check the error console. So far, there are none. So, our style has disappeared. It disappeared here. Why? I removed the classes. When I was explaining, I only just remembered I touched this button. Yes, but I didn't remove them from this button. I removed them here very carelessly. It's okay, it happens. Let's go back and update these classes. I hope they are like button shadow. No, not like that. Let's go to the main page to recall them. Ahiru button. That's why it didn't work on the button didn't work. Let's also go up and reset them. Add them. Yes, of course, my carelessness is getting better. All right, let's slowly start trying testing. So we're testing the loading. So I press console. We have no errors, but the next batch has loaded for us. The next 8 products, there's no more loading. Let's load. Nothing is loading. But now there's another issue. We'll solve it with this button. It needs to be hidden. If there's nothing more, then hide the button. I'll test it again to make sure it really works. So by default, we have 8. Press. Additional ones now are loading. All right? Refreshing the page. If I change something in the filter, you see it loads again, but replaces, meaning it doesn't add. We feed the groan. It needs to continue replacing when this German language is enabled, and if I load more, it will logically load more only for the German language. But we haven't made this request yet. What is important for us now is the trigger itself, that when I select something, you see they flicker here, which means it's new. A request is sent, and no matter what I edit here, a new request is constantly sent. Our Yax handles this perfectly. It works. And even with HDMI, nothing seems to have shifted. It works perfectly. Next, we need to make an insertion. Let's go in order with the platforms, that is. If we have a platform, then it exists. The variable has some value. Then we add to this args by the key. Taxgary. And we throw it inside the square because we have several taxa. We add the next array, the key for taxa. Is the same for platforms, so we copy paste and pass it to platforms. The next parameter is the file. So regarding the field, I don't remember. Did we pass the slug? No, we passed the ID because we changed these IDs for genres and languages, so for the platform as well. And consequently, we passed the term ID as the field, and the terms themselves, that is the terms parameter. I pass this value here, a Tolstoy comma. Let's check specifically with the platforms. I refresh the page as we close everything here. I will select a platform. Pieces are selected. I'll choose another one. PlayStation, because for PlayStation there's only one post. I'll choose Xbox. For Xbox there's nothing at all, but again, it needs to be improved, supplemented. Yes, for example, returning a value of nothing found. I'm doing the most basic one after all. Otherwise, the recording of this lesson will take a very, very long time. In principle, it's clear. If we clear it to select all, because it will already be with 0, that is, with an empty value. And to our request, this insertion simply will not be added. We do the same for the others. For language. So not language. The only thing is that here, it expects an array from us. Not a string separated by commas, but an array. Therefore, we need to edit this. Here, I think we'll use the exploit function. So, we have a comma there. And we pass the parameter, languages. In general, this line can even be avoided and done right here. That is when we form this variable. But I think it will be clearer this way. And let's check what's happening with the languages. So, and let's make sure, languages. Yes, everything else. I fixed it. I select German. We have one game that has German. I select English. We have only 2. I select French, only 1. Romanian, none. Russian, only 1 game. Everything works perfectly. I select 2. German, English, Spanish. So these 2 games are now available in these languages. Everything is great. Next. Next, genres. We do the same. Everything is similar by copy-pasting. We just changed the keys. For example, action. We have all action, but if I choose others, then there are none. I select action adds many games. Okay, let's say we had a lot of action. We select action. And if we click load more, it also loads action because this filter is still retained. It already sees it. So essentially it doesn't matter if I press the filter button or edit the filter. This data reaches me. And essentially, if we have 100 games with action by default, when I only select action, it doesn't show the first 8. But if you click load more, it will continue to load the next ones. The next ones, but specifically with the filter set here, the next parameters, we added all the taxonomies until publisher remains. And others. Metadata, come on, for metadata. Let's do a check for metadata. If it's a variable, we refer to the array. The key will already be meta query. Next, we will have several moments. We create this array with data. The first parameter is the key of the meta field for publisher. Let's recall what we used there. So we need to go to some product. And the key, here it is, Game Store Publisher. Next is the value. The boundaries are not this value right here. And the type of match. That is the parameter is I may want to set equality. Because I created, remember, a separate array and inserted these publishers into it, and therefore I am setting it to equality. Next, Let's test this, so I'll return to the block, return to this block with the publishers. And I'll assign Rockstar Game to 1, copy it. So I'll leave this as it is. Well, let's change this placeholder. To Ubisoft, it will now be Rockstar Game here as the title for it. We'll change it to make it clearer. So we've updated it. Let's reload the store page and select the publisher Rockstar Game. And consequently, I get this one. You see the test, a separate post. Next. And if I choose, for example, set it to English. Yes, we have the year in English. Let's update it again. Select English. Here it comes to us. I'll disable it. It shows up because English is still selected. Disabling it, it no longer shows up. But if I select publisher, Rockstar Game, I don't see it. Why? Because it has English but not a German thing. The combination goes, it doesn't display, but if I disable and enable it, English, it displays. But if you enable more, of course it will display because it relates to English. And to Rockstar, everything is fine. To finish, we need to add 2 more fields. So besides publisher, we have a field, single player. I won't even test it because again you need to set it, write it, but it works 100%. The only thing is you need to carefully pass the key as well. It's me. We'll check. Here's the single player. And you can add as many of these conditions as you need. That is the maximum number of taxonomies and meta boxes. The filter can be up to 100 fields long. With no problem, you make this insertion using such constructions. This is for single player, exactly the same, an exact match. But the next field is more interesting. This is the release field. Why is it more interesting? Because here we pass the date. Just a date, some year. And here it is, in this format. Let's say, for example, I don't know, 21. Year. Let's set it. Here is June of the year 21. Let's save it. Usually, whenever there are some unclear moments with dates, I hope it won't happen now. You need to carefully monitor the formats, in what format we save and in what we do above. By the release variable. And here it's probably not that much smarter. Let's come up with something. First take the field. It's ID. And into Ilya. I will give a range, since we have them stored not as 2024, but just with such a pair of parameters. I take the first day, the first month, and the second already, the last month, the 12th month, the 31st day. Compare already needs to make a range, so we use between and set the type as date. I forgot what format we save it in. Well, I hope if we save it in this format, it works for us. Let's test it. I inserted the year 21 here. If I select the year 21 here, I find this product. If they select the year 24, I find nothing. Let's try the year 25. Then I find exactly the 2 posts that we edited in the course. We were lucky that I saved it in exactly this format in the database, so it was very easy to retrieve here. And with our filter, yes, we have basically completed the filter's functionality. Maybe it can be improved further when clicking if there are no more options. You can somehow disable this button, or you can leave this button. It all depends on the project requirements and what the client wants. To complete this block, we need to style the filter. We will tackle this in the next lesson, and probably more. We will add this option, no matter what filters, where they are, or how many there are. You saw that we have one function in Ajax. And whatever we do, we will just create another form. And we will pass the same function to a similar submit. And this function already transmits all the filters that are on the page. Therefore, it can be scaled to any size. And in the end, we will have a fully implemented block. We will work on this in the next lesson. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.